Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled are author, photographer Mark Viera, and sex specialist Kim Ayers. I'm going to call her a sexologist. I didn't know what sexologist meant or what kind of title to give her, but she'll tell us later on. Photographer, author Mark Viera was born and raised in Oakland. He graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Art from Cal State, and then he went on to study cinema at USC, University of Southern California. And Mark, how did you become, this is very bizarre to me, a staff photographer at the dental school?
Well, you know how it is when you go to college.
I don't know about that one.
There's a work-study program so that you can work 20 hours a week.
Oh, yes.
You know, you get out of a class and you rush across campus to a different department. You go in there and you push audiovisual carts to classrooms. That's what I was doing.
I remember that.
So I was at the cinema department,
right.
Taking the classes for my graduate studies, and I would get out of class and rush across campus to the dental school to push a 16mm projector into a lecture hall for the dental students to watch the film, or I would be printing photos in the darkroom. So in a year or so I was there with them doing the work study job. They saw that I really was quite expert in black and white printing, so they offered me a full-time job.
So it really was a full-time job in the dental school?
Oh yeah.
And what were you taking pictures of?
Well, I would do portraits of dentists, because bear in mind it's publish or perish when you're in the academic world. So they always had to have a brand new portrait to go with their latest article for the ADA.
I forgot
journal.
about that.
Yeah.
So there had to be someone there doing that.
And events, we had to photograph events, but very often I would do clinical stuff too. To go down to the clinic with what's called intraoral camera, and it's this thing with the bellows on it, and someone would be there, and I'd take the picture of the procedure, and then but most of the time I was in the darkroom printing negatives.
But the black and white, if you were doing oral, would be in color, I guess. If you were doing in the mouth.
The slides were color Kodachrome, but the journals were black and white, so we needed to take an inner negative from the slide and make a black and white print to go into the magazine.
Oh, you did?
So I was doing this in the daytime, and then the evenings I'd be visiting George Folsey, Lee Garms, cinematographers from the 30s, and of course, George Harrell.
And that's how George Harrell knew about your work, your black and white work?
Well, he knew about it from a man named Dory Freeman, who's very famous as being Joan Crawford's best-known fan. He started her fan club. And Dory Freeman said, "Oh, George needs to copy some Joan Crawford photos from my collection. I hear you're doing really good copy work over at USC." I said, "Yeah."
Oh, you knew Dory.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you knew him from the cinema department?
I
where did
knew
you
him
know him?
because one day in summer of '73, I said, "I'm going to walk into MGM and see who's still there from the old days."
Oh, so you were kind of researching it in a way,
right?
right?
I never stopped.
So you've always been researching it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I see. So that's how they found you and you found them?
Mm-hmm, because he was doing a book, Harrell was doing a book, and he needed someone to copy Dory's photos. Dory wouldn't let them out the door to go to the publisher.
Oh, so George Harrell couldn't come to Dory's studio to take him. He needed someone else to do it.
He could. That's where I met him, but Dory wouldn't let them out.
But that's what I mean. So you had to go there and do that. After you met George, then what happened?
I would show him my own work, and you see a sample of that here, my own portrait work, and say, "Okay, is this lighting right?" He says, "Oh, you don't need any help. It's fine. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it."
You don't need, his lighting was what? How did he feel about lighting?
I would ask him very detailed questions, and I'd say, "Why did you do that there?" He'd say, "Oh, like I had Norma Shearer look up because her eyes were small," but he wouldn't give me a concrete reason why I use a certain light in a certain place. But he liked the fact that I would ask him a specific question that I knew. Why does that feel like up way down there instead of up here? Oh, because I wanted to fill in that one part right there. So
he knew what he was doing.
Oh yeah, but for him it was instinctive, and he had to learn how to articulate it because he couldn't at first articulate it. As he became famous, by the time you knew him, he had to learn. People wanted him to explain things, and in the 30s, he never explained anything. He didn't have to.
Because when I was working with him, when I was with Interview, and then I would do other shoots for other people. We did, I think it was a French Vogue shoot, and he said, "Come over here. I'll do your portrait." So sit there. I sat there, and he threw a light on the floor. I mean, it was just a light bulb behind me, and that was the lighting. I mean, the whole studio was dark, and that was the lighting, and it was fantastic. And I said, and he took one shot, and then I said, "George, I think Mr. Harrell," because I wasn't calling him George, "Mr. Harrell, I think you need to take another one." And I thought that was pretty gutsy, and he said, "I got it." And then when he sent me the portrait, he took another one. When he sent me the photo, he said, "I told you I had it."
The same thing happened with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner.
He said,
he shot it and started to walk out, and people were throwing fits like, "Come back, come back, come back."
"It's only one. You've only taken one shot, right?"
So he did some more, and of course, the one they used was the first one.
Yeah, yeah. So did you work on his books with him?
Just that one.
Just that one.
Yeah. But sadly, when I did my book, he had already passed away.
Oh.
And I did my book in '97. He passed away in '92.
Oh. How old was he?
87. You know, listen,
He wasn't old enough.
He would have still been going if he got cancer, but he worked right till the end. He was still taking chemotherapy, and he was still taking pictures.
And another photographer from that time was Ted Allen.
Oh, I knew him very well. Yes.
Did you?
Yeah, and his wife Jean. Yeah.
Yeah, they were fantastic,
Yeah.
but he lived longer, didn't he,
Yeah.
than George?
Yeah, and Willinger also. Yeah.
Yeah, and so were you friends with those photographers? Were you able to?
Because I would always bring them my work whenever I shot a new group of portraits. I'd bring those photos to them.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, there have been exhibitions of your work. I think there's an exhibition.
There was one last fall, and of course now I guess you heard about the exhibition of the Jean Harlow in conjunction with our book at the Hollywood Museum in the historic Max Factor building. A beautiful exhibition that Daryl and I co-curated, but Daryl really did all the work. He got her car in there and the mural from the home she shared with Paul Byrne. It's a wonderful exhibition.
Daryl Rooney,
Yes.
who wrote Harlow Hollywood with you.
Yes.
How'd the two of you get together to do this?
Well, you see that I printed a photo of Jean Harlow I brought here to show you. For years I've been printing, from the original negatives for various archives and collectors, and so Daryl is a person who's helped me make a lot of those connections. So I've known him in that regard since like 1992. So in 2002 he said, "I've got this collection, and you've been doing books now for how many years? Why don't we do a book together?" And I said, "Okay." So we sat down at Casita del Campo restaurant in Silver Lake, and we wrote the proposal.
And then how did you divide the work? Because you both are authors of this book.
Yeah, he did the first draft to put all the research and everything in order, and then I would do a draft based on that. Tell it as a narrative. He just put the facts, and I spun the narrative. Put the voices and everything.
So your writing was superb,
Oh, well, thank
along
you.
with your.
Thank you.
Because I've read some of it. So you did write it. You have to have a command. Did you take writing classes?
That's odd. I took filmmaking classes, but I've never had photography or creative writing.
And those are your excellent.
See all the bruises on my knuckles, all the scars.
What do we do?
No, from being whacked over the knuckles by editors at Abrams mostly, and my dear friend Howard Mandelbaum in New York at PhotoFest. He's also, helped me learn a lot about writing, and my friend Gary Morris in the Bay Area. Two wonderful writers.
How did you then research?
Now Daryl had all that.
He had all the research.
He had
for you?
contacted all the people, and he knew people who had contacted people and are still living, and so it was different. In my books, usually I would go to the archives, like USC and the Academy, to go through, the documents from the studios. In this case, there was a lot of primary research.
What did you find about Harlow that you didn't know?
What surprised me was how she really was a very soft-spoken, articulate, intelligent person who could really. Her letters are wonderful, and we put a lot of her letters in the book, so you really get her voice. She just was an entirely different person than you've ever read about before.
Did you know any of the people who knew her? Any of the photographers? Because there were
Oh, yeah,
more than.
Oh, Ted Allen talked to me about her, and so did George Harrell. Yeah.
They both did.
This is 30 years ago.
Because she would have been 100 years old, and most of those people who would have known her are gone. That's why I wondered about researching that.
Daryl and I both started in the 70s.
You've been working on this project for many years?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, who got me into film school was Lee Garms, the cinematographer who did Gone with the Wind, Morocco, Shanghai Express.
That's why you went?
Well, I had a friend named Laurie Hendricks at Cal State Hayward, and her boyfriend, his father was Chet Schaefer, who worked with Lee Garms. So I came to meet them when I was 20 years old, and they began to kind of, mentor me, and they wrote me letters to USC Cinema, and that's how I got in.
Because you wouldn't think, you talked about Hayward, Northern California, what was that connection with Movie Colony down south?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because one of my other classmates at Cal State Hayward was Paul Maybaum, whose father Richard produced the James Bond movies.
So there you are.
Yeah.
So we're all over. Okay, she was very young. She died very young. Do you think she would have had a career at this point if she had lived longer?
Oh, there's no question in my mind. I think she would have gone the route of Ida Lupino, writing and directing, yeah.
Oh, she would have continued in all aspects because she was so smart?
If she could have broken away from her mother.
Oh.
That's the thing. Yeah.
And how did she become so big so fast then?
There's luck.
Yeah, I agree with that.
A unique appearance, and the mother pushed.
None of the men she was involved with pushed her? Did the studios?
Yes, but the mother pushed Paul Byrne, who then pushed Irving Thalberg, who then said, okay, I'll take a chance, because he didn't like her at first.
Oh, because that's what I wondered. I thought that the studios, I'm reading parts of it. I haven't read the whole thing, which I want to read, the rest of the day. But there are parts where the studio people are really pushing her.
Yeah, Paul Byrne was the one, I think, who made the decisive difference in her career, getting her the coaches at MGM to really polish her appearance, to refine her voice, and to get her acting, But it's just, MGM had wonderful facilities and resources.
Everything. They did everything then, didn't they?
Right, and see, Howard Hughes didn't have any interest in that, and that was a sad thing. She was stuck there, and they're farming her out to other studios like Fox Film over at Sunset and Western, and she wasn't, qualified to play those parts, and they weren't well-written parts, so she wasn't learning anything really from those things. Whereas at MGM, all of a sudden, it was like a crash course in both acting and stardom.
Well, it's a fascinating book. It's beautiful. The photographs are great, and I'm glad that you brought your work in today, and a print of George Horrell's, and I thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Mark. And don't go away. We'll be right back with Kim Ayers, a sexual authority. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I told you she would explain everything to us, so I have Kim Ayers, who was born and raised on the East Coast. She calls herself a trisexual, which means she'll try anything sexual. In fact, she founded a sexuality boutique in Brookline, which is just outside of Boston. Kim, how did you get into the idea of leaving Harvard, where you had a job, and opening a sex boutique? I'm calling it sex, but it was a sex boutique.
A sex boutique. And a boutique was very women's oriented, very women friendly, because the traditional stores are very male oriented, and you're made to feel shameful going into stores like that.
Oh, and so it was a woman's store?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It had silk flowers and nice music and all women staffed and everything like that. Called Grand Opening, so it's got that great double entendre with the name.
I know.
People would say, you still have your signs up, and I'd be like, that's the name of the store.
Well, what were you doing at Harvard?
I did secretarial and research work. I actually worked for basically the board of directors at Harvard, and then for a professor who had retired but was on the board.
And you left your job to open a store, but you say you came from kind of a retail background, so you knew a little bit about it.
Absolutely. Retail doesn't scare anybody in my family. We grew up on top of my father's furniture store.
Oh,
his father was a troubleshooter for Montgomery Ward's during the Depression, so we all love retail, and my two sisters are both in retail.
So here we go to Brookline, which is a very uppity community, isn't it? Kind of Bel Air-ish,
Yeah, you
kind
can
of.
call it. There's parts of it that are like that, absolutely.
I mean, it kind of, I always think of Brookline as like kind of uppity. And you're going to open this women's sex boutique.
Yeah.
How did you know what to stock?
Well, as I said, I love sex, and I'm not shameful about it. And a lot of people, or there's few of us that aren't shameful about it. Just it's positive. It makes you feel good. There's really benefits to it. So what happened is, as a consumer, I was frustrated. There weren't any stores for me to go buy things the store that made me feel comfortable. So I said, well, if there's nothing there, then that means there's a need for something, and that's what made me start to do the store.
But then how did you know where to find the things? You had to go out and buy them. You had to find them. You had to know what to put in them, rather than Victoria's Secret, right?
Exactly. I had to apprentice. I apprenticed
Oh, you did?
at another store and learned a lot, and I got all their lists from there and started that way. So it was good old-fashioned apprenticing, which, I guess they call interning these days.
Yes, and so that led you to where to buy your
Absolutely
things and how to stock the store. Right. You talked about the double entendre with grand openings, and you came to the studio today on your motorcycle, Big Vibe.
Big Vibe, yeah.
And what I saw it out in the parking lot, what are those signatures on it?
It's all painted with sex toys and things that have to do with sex. So the front fender starts with lubricants. The tank has all the sex toys on it. There's condoms over the safety manual. There's batteries over the battery cover. And then the rear fender is all painted with anal toys.
Oh, wow. And so what happens on the road?
I know. I'll be at a light. I have the rabbit pearl on one side, and I'll be at a light, and people go, "Is that and I'm like, yeah. And the line I always get is, "But you look so normal."
Is that what,
Yeah.
Well, they're still in the street looking at
Right,
you.
right.
When the reason I bring that up is because there's a film called Orgasm Inc. And that's the reason you're here, to tell us a little bit about it, because it was directed by Liz Canner. And you ride this motorcycle in the film, and that's what catches my eye so rapidly.
Oh, great. The film Orgasm Inc., that I'm very proud of, is a 9-year effort by Liz Canner, and it started by Laura Berman, who's in the film a lot, and interestingly portrayed, I should say. And to step back a little bit, about 1997, 98, with the success of Viagra, everybody wanted to find the Viagra for women, which is the gist of the film Orgasm Inc. So I became part of this organization called the International Society for the Study of Women's Sexual Health, and I got asked to join and be one of the original members because of my skill set around sex toys.
And that was from your boutique.
Exactly.
They knew about it.
Exactly.
I see.
And someone else who's in the film, Dr. Irwin Goldstein, he knew of me and said, "We want you to be in this group." So Laura put me in touch with this company, Vivus, who was developing a drug and doing phase 3 clinical trials, and they needed basically erotic videos for the women to look at to self-stimulate themselves in the lab so they could test reaction. Well,
they took the pill or after they
exactly,
took
it was a topical cream, actually.
A cream,
so it was during it to see how it would work and the efficacy of it. So what happened is I said, sure, I can do this because I know adult film and everything. So I needed somebody to edit it. So my friend Liz, a documentary filmmaker, I said, "Liz, can you help me edit this movie?" And she was saying, "What are you doing this for?" And I started telling her about this pharmaceutical company. So she originally started to follow the path of this drug that this company was developing. And it turned out that she realized that there was a lot more going on, and that's what ultimately became Orgasm Inc.
Was that 10 years ago when you talked to her?
It was at least
about
10
it?
years
I mean,
ago. It was around
so it
2000.
took her all that time, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
And she took a different path. It opened up a new thing.
Right, because she's finding that drug companies are creating illnesses in order to make drugs for them to better the pharmaceutical industry.
Well, the thing that I thought was so interesting, I thought, who's going to see a film called Orgasm? This should be, on the Sex Channel. This should be at late at night, whatever. But the ink part of it led me to believe it was a business.
Exactly.
And when I watched it, I saw that it was a business. We're looking for the pink Viagra because it made so much money.
Exactly, and it's a lot trickier than everybody thought. As I mentioned, I've been in this group 13 years, so I've really followed the growth of who's doing research around what kind of drugs show some promise or not, and what is it exactly that they're looking for.
Well, how did you get people to interview?
Liz, actually, as a documentary filmmaker, she's very adroit with finding people that are willing to talk on camera.
Because it's hard to get somebody to talk about that subject.
Right. Well, not only the subject, but she got a lot of people, drug companies, and she got a lot of people to admit, well, we actually don't know what we're looking for. So that's an interesting part of the film, is that you can see them kind of stumbling and going, well, because women's sexuality is so tricky to define. And that's a big part of the film as well.
But it wasn't really so much about that. It just kept looking to me about people who were trying to find something that they could sell, like the orgasmatron.
Yep.
And that guy's like implanting something in your body.
In your spine, which is really scary to trigger nerve endings. But what a lot of people don't realize is the main nerve ending that shoots sensation from the genital area to the brain is called the pudendal nerve, and it actually sits outside of the spine.
So he didn't have to stick it inside.
Not at all. And that right there is flawed science. And but people are just trying to find that. And not only that, not only are drug companies trying to come up with the pink Viagra, but women are trying to find it, because if there's something wrong and I'm not reacting sexually, then I must be able to take a pill and everything will be all right. And that's something that Orgasm Inc. focuses on. That's our culture nowadays.
Right.
And you watch afternoon TV and you could think you have 20 things wrong with you just because of the drug advertising.
Well, one thing, because of the subject matter, does religion have a part of it, do you think?
Always.
It keeps
Not always.
Keeps people from talking about
really
sex?
Strong. Yeah, one of the characters in the film, Carletta, references religion upbringings. And I've talked to thousands of women, and that can greatly impact someone's just ability to let themselves go there, and not worry about religion or what the church thinks about their body or what they should do with it and things like that. So that's definitely a big
Instead of
part.
educating, it becomes a no-no.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
is what happens. And then the other thing that I think, when you talked just now about watching TV and seeing so many things that are wrong with you, there are cosmetic surgeons to make you better in your vaginal area.
Right, to nip and change it and make things all pretty and nice.
Is that what it is, to make it pretty and nice, or to make it tight? Or
not so much tight, but it's, a lot of women, their inner labia are two different sizes, or they tend to be longer, and they feel that there's something wrong with them and they need to change that. And what a point is made that's in Orgasm Inc. is that basically that's genital mutilation, no matter how you look at it. But these women don't see it that way at all.
And I'm a rep at the UN, and that's what all the countries are trying to get legislation against this female genital mutilation, because it's so damaging to the woman.
Right, and it's packaged as a beauty.
And this, what you're talking about, is a beauty procedure, cosmetic.
Yeah,
it's like giving you an eye job.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is something, if you open up any kind of alternative newspaper, a lot of times, designer labia and things like that.
Is that what it is?
Oh yeah, and it's prevalent, especially here in Los Angeles.
How do they get away with the surgery? Is it not against the law to do that?
It's not against the law, no, not at all. Nor will it be ever, because of the big companies that are behind it. And there's nothing wrong with it. This is a choice that a woman's making.
The other thing that I saw was this museum of sex toys. Or vibrators.
Right.
Where was that, and who is that involved with?
That's involved with the store Good Vibrations, and the woman who founded Good Vibrations, Joni Blank, actually started that collection. She founded Good Vibrations in 1973.
Wow.
In 77. And so she had been collecting them all along, and she put them in the store, and they're there.
Where is that? Is that San Francisco?
Yeah.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
The FDA didn't approve of
Intrinsa,
Intrinsa,
right, which is a testosterone patch.
but the UK sells it.
Right, the European Union, exactly.
How does that happen?
It's, I don't know how it gets through there. I don't know how they work. I'm much more familiar with the processes at FDA. So the thing that's flawed about Intrinsa is, yes, it's a testosterone patch. Yes, I've seen a lot of data around sex drive and other things, which is also referred to in Orgasm Inc. But the data that the company Procter & Gamble came up with was that it had to be used in conjunction with full hysterectomy and estrogen replacement, which is like a double whammy.
Yeah, because that's not what you're striving for.
Exactly. And not only that, but people would be racing out to get that because, it's going to increase sex drive. I don't care about the hysterectomy estrogen thing, that type of thing. So it would be very, very unregulated, and that's one of the flaws that the FDA found. But it still is available in the EU, and I'm a little surprised it did get approved, but again, I'm not familiar with the process.
All over the EU, not just the UK.
Correct.
Oh, I see. Do you think that this film would be labeled as a chick flick? Or should everyone see it?
I think everyone should see it. I think it opens people's eyes on many levels. One is that there's not necessarily a magic pill for everything. Two, the incredible power that the pharmaceutical companies have over what we want to do with our bodies. That's a huge one that Leonore Tiefer in the film highlights a lot. Also, too, is there's a couple of lines in it that are really important, is that women, their response to the erotic videos was much better than with the drug. So
isn't that interesting?
Exactly. So it's like these women probably had never seen erotic videos before because it gets lumped into the pornography, and all pornography is bad, when they don't allow themselves to go see one, to get one. And so what it is it's like, well, no, maybe try seeing erotic videos and maybe trying sex toys, which is my background and strength is the sex toys part of it. So, and just let yourself go there and communicate with your partner. This is a big one. And so that's why women's sexuality is so much more complex than men's.
So men should see it because they can understand what's going on too.
Absolutely.
Where has it been shown? Is it just going to be shown on campuses or will it be commercially?
It's commercially. First Run Features is promoting it and distributing it through the country. It's been in New York, Chicago, Boston. It's now in LA and San Francisco, and it'll be a few other places as well. So stay tuned. Now, the most important thing is, because with these smaller documentary films, it's sometimes difficult to try to find them, especially if you don't live in a metropolitan area. So what you can do is you can put it in your queue in Netflix. Because if enough people ask for it, then Netflix will be getting it in. So that's how it can really get out there to the masses, is to just put it in your queue into Netflix, and it alerts them that there's a demand to see this film.
Well, Kim, you have enlightened us so much today.
It's a dirty job, but
someone has to do it. And you're the
trisexual.
You're the trisexual.
At grandopening.com. That's it.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Joan.
And keep writing to Joan Quinn at 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017. And email JAQUINN1 at AOL.com. See you next time.